Welcome to MRE, your source for apocalyptic Christianity. Have you ever had something that happened in your life that is so strange or so amazing that most people don't believe you when you tell them? Something that, unless it actually happened to you, you honestly don't know if you would believe it if it was someone else's story. Now, if not, we have all listened to someone tell us something that they, just swear on the Bible happened, and our response sometimes is, yeah, right. And no matter how much they try and convince us, we may never really believe them. Even if we want to believe it, sometimes we still struggle to believe it. We want more information to satisfy the doubts that we have about what it is they're telling us. Now, is there something in your life that you are completely satisfied with? Something that is just perfect to you, just the way that it is, and it doesn't need to change, nothing needs to be added to it in order to make it complete. Now, there might be something like that that you felt that way about at one point in your life, but it most likely didn't last forever, did it? Time erodes and it changes everything. That perfect new car, well, now it has 187,000 miles on it, and now it just frustrates you more than it brings you joy. Or you landed that dream job, and after a couple months you see something that you didn't see before, and now you wish you had never left your old job to begin with. Or your spouse. Well, that's all I'll say about that one there. Now, Solomon says this in Proverbs: just as death and destruction are never satisfied, so human desire is never satisfied. And again in Ecclesiastes, he says this: the rivers run into the sea, but the sea is never full. Then the water returns again to the rivers and flows out again to the sea. Everything is wearisome beyond description. No matter how much we see, we are never satisfied. No matter how much we hear, we are not content. Now, when we hear the word content, as believers, usually our minds, they go right to what Paul said in Philippians chapter 4, where he says that I've learned to be content with whatever it is that I have. He says if I'm rich or poor, healthy, unhealthy, hungry, with full belly, whatever, it doesn't matter. Nothing phases me. I'm always content. And so we interpret that as, well, if I'm ever dissatisfied with life or with some aspect about life, I'm not being a very good Christian. Sorry, Jesus. And then we try and force ourselves to be happy, to be satisfied with where we are in life, satisfied with what's going on in our life, because we think that that's what it means to be content. But are you really ever satisfied? Are you really ever content? No, we're not. I mean, you may have moments when you are, but they don't last forever. So we fight to try and get to a place of satisfaction in our life. And we try and force ourselves to have a better attitude. And that can work, for a while, but it's not sustainable. You can only white knuckle it for so long. You can only force a smile for so long. You can only hold on by your own strength for so long before you get tired, and then that thing that you're holding on to, it slips right through your fingers. And then you're right back again where you were before, but now you're less motivated to try again. And that time span of discouragement or depression, it's lengthier than it was the last time. Until you decide to try and pull yourself up from your bootstraps, one more time. But you will never be satisfied while you're here on earth. And that's intentional on God's part, I believe. Because if everything was just perfect here, we wouldn't have this longing in our souls for something else, for something that is perfect and something that is complete. Solomon writes this in Proverbs 16. He says, it's good for workers to have an appetite. An empty stomach drives them on. Planet Earth, is our workday. And we have an 80-year workday. And while we are alive, we are at work. Heaven, that's our rest. That's our home. So while we are here at work, our employer, if you will, he keeps us a little hungry to motivate us. An empty stomach is a great motivator, isn't it? And we get some breaks from time to time, every now and then, and we get moments to rest and to eat a little food. but they're never as long as we would like, and they're just like a 10 to 15 minute break, that we get before we have to go back to work. And some days at work, like you're in the zone and the day is just flying by and everything is just going well and you're firing on all cylinders. And then some days at work are just awful and nothing falls into place and nothing works right. And you think, why did I even bother showing up at work today? Today is one of those one step forward, two steps back kind of a day. That's why Paul writes this in 1 Corinthians. Now we see things imperfectly, like puzzling reflections in a mirror, but then we will see everything with perfect clarity. All that I know now is partial and incomplete, but then I will know everything completely, just as God now knows me completely. Instead of letting it drive you crazy, we have to embrace it. Choose to let it drive you into thinking about eternity with Jesus instead of it making you mad with seeking perfection while you're here on earth. This world sucks, and it is hopelessly flawed because of sin, and it's not going to get any better. Even if Trump wins again this year, right? It's just going to get worse and more frustrating. And your deepest desires that you have in your heart, they won't be satisfied here. So stop striving to find perfection or even to create perfection. I've been working on some projects around the church in this season of lockdown, and none of them have really turned out like I was hoping. And I've let that get under my skin, a little bit. I think part of my oldest child syndrome is, this drive for perfection. But that's not always a good thing. Very rarely is it, actually, because there's nothing perfect on earth, is there? And difficulty, it can either motivate us to keep moving forward, or it can discourage us to take a step backward. And is it difficult to get up for work in the morning? Yes, it's difficult. But you let it motivate you to go forward because you enjoy eating and having a place to sleep and watching TV. That challenge, it motivates you to move forward. And that's all really that God is doing with us while we are here on earth. He won't satisfy us here, okay? That comes after this life is over. In Hosea, he writes this, I took care of you in the wilderness, in that dry and thirsty land. But when you had eaten and were satisfied, you became proud and you forgot me. See, the reason that we will never really be satisfied here on earth is because God knows what we would do if He did satisfy us. We would stop moving forward. We would lose this innate desire that there is something more out there. We would become proud, he says, and we would forget Him. But God loves us too much to leave us in this contaminated condition, and so He gives us an empty belly in the form of, that new car wearing out and becoming a thorn in your side, or in the form of that perfect job that you had taking a frustrating turn and now you're stuck, in the form of your dream house, but after you sign the papers, an enthusiastic ska band, that works the graveyard shift, they move in next door, in the form of your spouse, and you fill in the blank there, right? See, in Luke, Jesus says this, God blesses you who are hungry now, for you will be satisfied. Will be, that's a future tense. God blesses you who weep now, for in due time you will laugh. That day of satisfaction, it's not today. And that day will never really come while you are living in your human body. You can either let that motivate you to move forward, or you can let it discourage you and drag you backward. And how do we let it move us forward? Well, listen to what Paul writes in Philippians chapter 4. He says, not that I was ever in need, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it's with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little. For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. What is that secret he talks about? That secret is the work that God has you doing while you are here on earth. He gives you strength to do it. Okay. That's it. It's not actually really much of a secret. It may have been a bit of a secret or kind of like a new thing when Paul wrote this under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit 2,000 years ago. But this is not a secret anymore. The work that God has you doing while you are here on earth, He gives you the strength to do it. And that doesn't mean that you're always going to be thrilled about it. I mean, who wants to wake up early and go to work every day? I don't. But who cares what I want, right? Who cares what you want? We are workers in the Father's kingdom. And you are still on the clock, whether you like it or not. And we will stand before Him one day and be held accountable for our time here on earth. And basically, the day of judgment is just our exit interview from our human bodies. Hebrews chapter 12 says this, "So take a new grip with your tired hands and strengthen your weak knees. Mark out a straight path for your feet, so that those who are weak and lame will not fall, but become strong." Work at living in peace with everyone, and work at living a holy life. For those who are not holy will not see the Lord. Tomorrow is a work day. And the day after that, that's a work day. And the day after that, it's another work day. Even your Sabbath, when you take a Sabbath day, that's part of your earth work day. That's your little 30-minute lunch break that you get, and that you better be taking it if you want strength for the next day, which is another work day. See, there's a good reason that you and I are never satisfied and will never be satisfied on earth. It is all a part of God's plan to try and draw our attention to Him. So if you aren't satisfied with life, accept that as a good thing. God doesn't want you satisfied with this body or with this planet that we're on. He has something so much better for us when we finally do get to clock out. So keep moving forward. And if today was a step back for you kind of a day, well, so what? It won't be your last one, but look forward to and move forward to the day when you finally will rest and you finally will be satisfied.